Hey everybody, Chaotic here. So I'm bringing you today the Scarlet TKL build guide. So in front of me is the Scarlet TKL with a PCB that's included. With mine, I've already prepped some OA stabilizers to go on the PCB. Additionally, you're going to want to grab your plate of choice, either palm or aluminum. In my case, I'm using the rose gold aluminum plate, which is a prototype only plate. Finally, you're going to want your mounting method, so either the O-ring or the top mount screws, whichever one you're going to use in the build that you're going to finish here. And of course, don't forget your switches. In this build, I'm going to be using Shogoki Switches, which are a tactile switch by Thickthock. Okay, now that you have everything, move everything off to the side. We're just going to need the PCB and plate to begin the process of building the Scarlet TKL. Alright, from here we're going to grab some switches. We're going to place these switches in the top corners and bottom corners of the plate PCB assembly. This will secure the plate to the PCB. If you're using a solder or hot swap board, make sure your pins are straight, obviously. And in the case of a hot swap PCB, ensure that you're supporting your hot swap sockets to prevent them from popping out. Alright, so with the power of editing, I am now completed putting in all my switches. For those that are using the Win keyless top case for the Scarlets, please note that the bottom two areas for where the Win key switches should be are empty, which is in my case what is occurring because I have a Win key top case. So in order to put the Win key top case on, that area has to be vacant of switches or else you won't be able to put the top case on. From here on out, we can add our keycaps onto the PCB plate assembly, making sure that we leave the leftmost and rightmost columns empty without keycaps because we're going to need that space later on in the build. Sheesh, I'm fast as fuck, boy. Alright, so now that I've put on the keycaps onto the PCB plate assembly, what we're going to do is we're going to grab the top case and make sure you also grab two fairly thick textbooks or books, whatever you have laying around, as stands for the assembly process. If you're going to be utilizing a top mount configuration for the Scarlet, then your job is pretty easy. All you have to do is align the plate tabs into the little indents on the top case and plop the plate assembly into the top case. After you do that, all you need to do is utilize the top case screws that are included in the package and screw those screws in, and you're basically almost done. For those that will be utilizing the O-ring mount configuration rather than the top mount configuration, which I assume a lot of people buying the Scarlet will be doing, you can follow the upcoming instructions. You're going to want to grab your O-ring of choice depending on whether or not you bought a different hardness O-ring, and you're going to slip it around the PCB plate assembly in the area that is left between the PCB and plate after you have inserted switches into your sockets. Do not put the O-ring above the plate and do not put it under the PCB, which is probably impossible, but just in case. From here, you can give the O-ring a quick run over your finger just to give it a little bit of a tuck so that it's securely in place between the PCB plate assembly. Okay, so now onto the installation of the assembly into the case. For most of the units that are going to be in the actual run, this is probably going to be the method that you will be utilizing. So essentially, you can just plop in the assembly into the bottom case after you've plugged in the JST connector into the back of the PCB. And after you plop the assembly into the bottom of the case where the notches are to align everything, you can throw the top case on and just push down on the top case. You should feel a little bit of resistance from the O-ring. It should kind of feel squishy, but you should be able to push over the squishiness of the O-ring, and then the case should be friction fit closed. If, however, you're finding trouble in pushing the top case onto the O-ring, then you can utilize this method, which will most likely alleviate that issue for you. So what we're going to do here is we're going to grab the top case of the Scarlet and fit the O-ring into the top case, similar to how we would mount the PCB plate assembly if we were going to do a top mount configuration. You're going to notice that the O-ring does bulge out of the top portion of the case when mounting it like this. This is where a small pair of tweezers will come in handy, or something that won't scratch the case, like perhaps a credit card. Utilizing your tool of choice, in my case a pair of small tweezers, you can utilize your tool to tuck the O-ring in the area between the top case and the PCB plate assembly. Moreover, ensure that the area where the top case is being supported by the textbooks or books that you're utilizing to support the top case is the area where you have not inserted keycaps into the switches. Remember that the leftmost and rightmost columns have been left blank earlier when you were building the PCB plate assembly. This area should be used to help support the top case so that while you're tucking in the O-ring into the top case, the PCB plate assembly does not pop up from the top case. Okay, for the last part, you're going to grab the bottom case of the Scarlet and you're going to put it perpendicular to the top case. From here, grab the male end of the JST connector from the bottom case and fit it into the female end on the PCB. Then gently place the bottom case onto the top case, grab your case screws, and screw the bottom case into the top case. Now all you have to do is place on the keycaps from the leftmost and rightmost columns that you didn't have before, and you are done your build.